strangers came in tonight. I have no idea who they are, but I did check their passports. And so they're going to be coming up here. They're going to do something called Palindromes. Please welcome Alan and Carolyn.
All right.
Okay. Help me, I'm lost!
Hey, Dad, man! What's up? What's wrong?
Oh, it's really hitting me. Oh, I'm lost. The last thing I remember, I was near a body of water.
Hey, dude! That body of water, was that the Red Sea, man?
No, Ocean Beach. And before that, I
Hey,
remember...
dude, my horse is thirsty,
I
man.
coming down from a mountain.
Hey, man! Dude, was that Mount Sinai? Moses?
No, Sutro. But I need to find congregation Bnai Emunah, because along with congregation near Tamid,
Hey!
they're hosting a
Cool, man.
special
Cool, man. Cool,
event.
I'm
where
a
they-
member of Bnai Emunah.
Right. That's great. Well, they've invited all of my followers for their 3,223rd annual reunion.
Hey,
So
cool, man.
you can take me there.
You know what? My camel's in the shop, man, but guess what? This is Hope Along.
All right.
Hop on!
All right.
Woo!
Oh, thank you. Oh, people.
Hey, man.
Oh, well, shalom.
He needs a break. He needs a break.
It's so wonderful to be here tonight for our 3,223rd annual reunion. Now, that number is a palindrome. It reads the same in both directions, 3223. You know, so, well, for example, here's a really famous palindrome. You remember this one? Madam in Eden,
Hey,
I'm
dude.
Adam.
Hey, dude. You said I could help you, man, dude. I'm into a gig.
All
You know, I
right.
need
Well,
some
here,
rent.
how about
I need some
Christopher
dough.
Sellers? All right.
Cool, man. Hey, man. Oh.
And, of course, you know, Eve's response wasn't too bad either. Eve, man, am Eve.
Hey, man. Hey, dude, man. Hey, Moses,
Yeah.
man.
Oh, look at that.
Hey, look, man.
All
Want
right.
to bite of the apple?
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, you know, our passage from Egypt to the Promised Land, I mean, really, that can be summarized in one beautiful palindrome. Look at that. Backward. Are we not drawn onwards, we Jews, drawn onward to new era? And you know, there's so much to that palindrome too. It's beautiful. And you know something else? Our
No,
journey.
man. Yeah, Moses?
Yes?
What?
Sounds good. Our journey actually began with a palindrome. When spoke with God at the burning bush. And God identified himself with a Hebrew word palindrome. Check that out. Eyeh, Asher, Eyeh. Now this is a word palindrome, word units instead of story units. Sort of like all for one and one for all, something like that. It's palindrome, God's words to me. I will be what I will be. Now this is when God instructed me to go to Egypt and free Israeli slaves. And I said, well,
God. Man.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, man, I want to say something. You were talking about the Jewish people reading backwards and forwards.
Oh my
man.
God, yes, look at that. We wrote the book on reading backwards, didn't we?
We did.
Okay, well, anyway, so God instructed me, and I said, well, God, that's easy for you to say, but, you're a deity, but I am merely flesh self. And so, well, God said, don't worry, he said, you'll know what to say.
Dude, I'm thirsty, man.
Oh, okay.
It's been a long journey.
Right over your shoulder.
And God said, don't worry about it. God said, don't worry. God said, don't worry, I will speak for you. You will represent me. I said, I'm going to represent a deity? That means I've been deified, right?
Whoa.
No, okay, that's pretty cool.
I can dig
said,
that,
yeah.
man.
So with my brother Aaron, okay, we went to Egypt, and I said to the Pharaoh, I said,
Pharaoh!
I said, I am here to deliver my people. And the Pharaoh replied, delivery reviled. Yeah.
I don't like that Pharaoh, man.
Not a good guy.
Not cool.
So then I said to the Pharaoh, I said, every Jew must be free. And the Pharaoh replied, we jeer free Jew. So I said, okay, Aaron, do your stuff. And Aaron took my staff and touched it to the water and turned it red. Whoa, turned it red, but not quite red enough. So I whispered in Aaron's ear, redder. Okay, now when the Pharaoh saw that the red meant blood, he said, he said merely, red. No wonder. So,
Hey, dude, can I have a raise?
we'll talk about it later. So, next we caused an invasion of frogs.
I went sat over there.
Now,
You still had your chair.
many of you might know that I was technical advisor for Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments, okay? And after we filmed the frogs, action! Cecil B. DeMille shouted to me, hey Moses, what happened next? And I said, lice came, nice cinema, Cecil. So, at this point, finally,
point, you're about to talk to a rage for me?
again, we'll discuss that later. So we said to the Pharaoh finally relented. Okay? And you remember what you shouted when you were free? You said, "Egad, no bondage."
Egad, no bondage.
Right. Now our first big challenge was, of course, crossing the Red Sea.
Whoa!
I stuck out my staff and I parted the water. I divided the water. But now, I know you saw the Ten Commandments and you think Charlton Heston divided the water. Well, let me tell you something. I can assure you that I was the original divider. Charlton Heston was merely the re-divider. So after we crossed the Red Sea, of course, I used my staff again, and closed the Red Sea on our enemies. This staff is incredible. Turned the river red, parted the waters. One time, This staff was used as a cue stick by the legendary pool hustler Minnesota Fats.
Hey, boy, the boy side bucket.
For that event, of
The side bucket.
course, it was called
Hey, boy, the side bucket.
Staff of Fats.
Here you go, dude.
So we crossed the Red Sea, we entered into the desert. God took care of our needs. Every night,
I know, he took
Every
care of
night.
my needs, man.
looking at the sky, looking at the sky, one question loomed larger than any other. Do geese see God? So finally we reached Mount Sinai. Finally. And you know what happened at Mount Sinai?
Yeah?
I received the Ten Commandments. Or, as palindrome lovers like to say, he nets tenets. 10, eh?
Hey, man. Cool.
He, meaning me, nets acquires tenets. Commandments.
And my
10,
name's
eh?
Sunflower Man. I'm an Israeli hippie girl. I spread love and peace. And I do all of these, man.
Let's look at those commandments. Our first commandment, I am the Lord thy God. Or, as palindrome lovers would say, dogma. In my hymn, I am God. And you know, it really comes as no surprise that a musical hymn would be associated with the first of the Ten Commandments, because coming up the mountain, I actually found some Mount Sinai pianist memos.
Hey, man, dude, I found it too. Hey, man, your hair was darker.
Oh,
Man.
yes it was.
Hey, I know a good hairdresser.
Right. The second commandment, just as important. You shall have no other gods before you. Or, in other words, as palindrome lovers would say, Yahweh, the way. Can you believe that? Yahweh, the way. And the last commandment, thou shalt not be jealous of thy neighbor's possessions. That can be summed up beautifully in a palindrome, too. Want it? Yeah.
Oh, no, I can't be jealous. You take it.
Aha. Well, what about all those commandments, I should say, in between 2 through 9? Well, they can be summed up nicely in a palindrome, too. Live not on evil. Right? And
Evil!
that's as important today as it was 5,000 years ago. Because evil, all its sin, is still alive.
Hey, dude,
Yes.
what about my race? I need
Oh,
some
we will.
some red.
We'll cover that. Well, you know what happens, folks. When you do sin, come Shabbat, you know what happens. Watch for the telltale signs. Well, there we are, the telltale signs of having sinned. We panic in a pew.
Hey, dude,
So,
you're cool, man.
Ten Commandments in Hannah came down from the mountain. And what do I find? I find my followers worshiping a golden calf.
No way, man. No way. Not me, man.
And the golden calf enraged
Not
God
me, see? Not me.
and added 40 years to our travel time. Woo! So I got angry too. And I
Not you,
smashed the
Moses.
10 Commandments. And people said to me, Moses, we've never seen you so
Whoa.
angry. And I
Hey,
said,
Moses. Not you.
Semite Moses' ire rise sometimes.
Whoa. Dude, man.
And what really got me upset
What?
was I found out that I was not able to deduct the cost of the replacement tablets. As I found out when I asked my CPA, must I Moses omit some?
Hey man, that means I don't get any dough. That wasn't cool of you. I don't dig that.
You knew it when you signed on. Our 40 years in the wilderness presented many challenges. Among them, when my brother Aaron's right to be high priest was questioned by his challengers, we took Aaron's rod and the rods of the challengers and placed them in the tabernacle. The next morning, only Aaron's rod had sprouted flowers and blossoms. And that was taken as proof that God had selected Aaron. Fast forward to today. There is a large flowering plant called goldenrod. Its common name is Aaron's rod. Here you see it. International postage stamp says Aaron's rod.
Aaron's rod. Aaron's rod.
Now, not only does goldenrod pay homage to Aaron's rod, but the palindrome of goldenrod pays homage to Aaron's rod. Goldenrod adorned log. Now, what is a log but a stick of wood? Goldenrod adorned log. Where do these connections come from?
Where do they come from?
Hashem.
Well, I think I know. And I think if you ask him, he's likely to say, I'm a droll lord, am I?
I'm a droll lord, am I? I am I?
Well,
Yeah.
you know, flowers and blossoms also were on the mind of your descendants, who arrived in the Promised Land and accomplished what you set out to do by turning the desert into a garden, by establishing
Whoa.
Veggie Negev.
Cool. Man, how'd you know I was a vegan, man? Cool.
So,
You're cool.
and if you want to find out more about your descendants' accomplishments,
I do.
well, we suggest that you take out a subscription to the Semite Times.
Hey, would you like to buy a copy, man? He tells me like he smashed those commandments. I'm not getting my raise here, man. I need some bread.
Well, it was time to check in with God to
Okay.
see if I had accomplished His instruction. And all it took was 15 words, 6 different letters, and no word more than 4 letters long. What? One's missing.
Cool. Hey, cool.
Dude.
Guess what?
So,
I got it. Moses.
what's for the future? Well, we long for the day when both Israeli parents and Palestinian parents together will say, Nash Allah Chala, son. So, here it is, the Tu B'Av. And, you know, this is a great time to remember that in the book of Leviticus, which is the middle book of the 5 books of Torah, and in the middle of Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 18, we see, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. We're commanded to love ourselves. And I, for one, am writing a 2-volume set about how I love myself. I've completed the first volume, which I've titled, I Love Me, Vol. 1.
Cool.
But really, folks, what Sunflower and I want to leave you with on this Tu B'Av, as you go through life and make your choices in life, remember this palindrome. Bechar, belev, rachav. Choose with a big heart. Choose with an open heart. Thank you very much.
Alan and Carolyn, thank you so much. That was awesome. And now, we are going to take a very short break. We have some drinks on the table. The alcohol's on the table and the bubbly water will be in 1 second. A few little treats. The restrooms are down that way. And we will reconvene right around 8 o'clock-ish. And then we'll have a chance to sing along with Bruce. So please take a break. And as you take your break, please put your song sheet on your seat